Hi everyone. Have you ever watched movies set in medieval times? If so, you may have noticed that characters are frequently portrayed as having appalling teeth. Heroes and upper-class individuals usually get a pass, but villains and peasants are very likely to have disgustingly rotten teeth, or to be missing half their teeth. Now, I'd be lying if I said I didn't think this trope makes for good comedy. But how much truth is there to it? In today's recording, I'll attempt to answer that question. I'll begin by talking about medieval literature on promoting oral hygiene. A substantial number of contemporary treatises provide suggestions for using toothpaste or for getting rid of food waste. For example, the Compendium of Medicine, thought to have been written in the mid-13th century, advises readers to clean their teeth after every meal. To do this, they should rub their teeth and gums with a cloth after eating. The Red Book of Hergest, a Welsh document dating to the late 14th century, recommends rubbing one's teeth with leaves of sage, powder of salt, and dates. Scrubbing the teeth with the herb Elecampane is equally effective. You can even shape Elecampane into powder balls if you're on the go. The Trotula, a collection of texts dating to 12th century Italy, has an unusual recipe for strengthening corroded gums. It calls for grinding cinnamon, clove, spikenard, mastic, frankincense, grain, wormwood, crabfoot, date pits, and olives to powder, and rubbing the affected places. Other passages in the Trotula state that ground pimpernel clean out inflammation of the gums, and that people suffering from black teeth should rub emptied walnut shells against them. Next, the 12th century German abbess Hildegard of Bingen wrote a medical treatise in which she recommends brushing one's teeth with a mixture of warm grapevine ash and wine. It's important to brush often, and always after dinner. The Byzantine physician John Actuarius recommends chewing fennel or lovage or parsley every day because it cleans the gums real good. In addition, we know of two Byzantine recipes for toothpaste dating to the 14th and 15th centuries. They both call for using mastic resin. Fun fact, mastic resin could only be found on the Aegean island of Chios. Whether people use toothbrushes, I don't know. According to an online source I've read, toothbrushes were invented by the Chinese at the end of the 15th century, but I can't vouch for the website's authenticity. So, we have recipes and recommendations from Germany, England, Wales, Italy, and the Byzantine Empire. At least some of his literature commanded attention. It was distributed on a regional scale, or throughout Western and Central Europe. What's more, the mastic of Chios was highly sought after by wealthy Western Europeans. But would the advice have proven effective? I would answer with a qualified yes. Rubbing your teeth with a cloth will achieve very little. Using walnut shells to relieve tooth decay, as far as I can tell, is pure quackery, and I haven't found any evidence attesting to the evidence of lovage. On the other hand, sage can neutralize bacteria that cause dental plaque. In the same line of thinking, salt, Elecampane, scarlet pimpernel, mastic resin, cinnamon, and frankincense are well-known antiseptics. That is to say, they prevent the growth of teeth and gum-attacking bacteria. I should note that cinnamon and frankincense cost a fortune, so you would have been very fortunate to be able to afford them. And a recent study suggests that wine may contain a chemical compound that prevents bacteria from sticking to the gums. With all that said, did medieval people have good teeth? Here we're lucky enough to have some forensic data at our disposal. About a dozen studies have been conducted on contemporary skeletons using collective burial sites. These sites are located in England, Scotland, France, and Croatia. The studies span 100 or more years of the Middle Ages. They each provide a percentage of people afflicted with cavities. If you examine all the case studies, you start to see a pattern. 3/4 of the time, the percentage of individuals with cavities is under 25%. I have to stress that these figures should be used carefully. They're far from definitive. With that said, they compare favorably to modern statistics. For instance, in the UK, according to a study dating to 2018, 31% of adults have cavities. In France, a study conducted in 2013 shows that 35% of people under 25 had a cavity in the last 6 months. In the US, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, roughly 31% of people between ages 20 and 44 had untreated cavities. This was in 2013-2016. The notion that the medieval population had relatively healthy teeth makes a good deal of sense. Not only does oral hygiene appear to have been serious business, but people consumed very little sugar. They couldn't afford it. Honey, it's true, was much less expensive. In 14th century England, for instance, it would have cost roughly 1/30th of the price of sugar. But it doesn't promote tooth and gum decay nearly as much as sugar does. Now, it's true that the medieval diet was high in stone-ground bread, and many historical enthusiasts claim that this regime wears down your teeth over time. As far as I know, the idea has yet to be confirmed by a dentist or a bioarchaeologist. The last thing to consider is that the quality of dental care is poor. Among other things, the anesthetics that dentists used could prove lethal. So, it was in people's best interest to follow a diet that kept the dentist away. In conclusion, you can certainly make a case that life in the Middle Ages was bleak, harsh, and violent, although the same thing can be said about classical antiquity, or the Renaissance, or the 1700s. But in terms of dental health, don't believe what the film industry tells you. From what we know so far, the great majority of medieval people could have expected to get through life with their teeth in a state of good repair, assuming no accidents unrelated to hygiene. Thus, they probably wouldn't look out of place in the 21st century.